afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to All About Sports. Today we discuss that Carolina Panther star Christian McCaffrey signed a 4-year extension on Monday, averaging $16 million per year, making him the highest paid running back in NFL history. I'm your host, Luca Vitale. Joining me again today are Ethan Polak and Matt Posner. All right, Matt, I'm going to come at you first. Did the Panthers make a mistake with this deal?
Absolutely not, because you have the best running back, in my opinion, in the NFL, in Christian McCaffrey.
Okay.
I think that this team is just so good. And, well, no, not the team. He is just so good that I think that McCaffrey needed to get all the money he could get. The Panthers don't have anybody truly that they need to pay apart from McCaffrey. And throw him all the money that he deserves, because the way he was able to fool defenses last season, something tells me that will stay the same this season. There was no failure here with McCaffrey, in my opinion.
Yeah, and as one of my idols, I'm started off with this. As one of my idols who have been watching, he put this into perspective after this deal came out. He said, "This little white guy out of Stanford is now the face of the Carolina Panthers." If you guys can name who that is Pat McAfee, the guy who I love watching, the guy who's been idolizing him. But I just love that statement because he's very, very true. Usually you never see any white running backs. No, not to put race into it, but like white running backs are not really the best in the NFL. And this little guy out of Stanford, like he said, is now the best guy in the NFL, like best running back in the NFL. Now he's the face of the Carolina Panthers out of nowhere. This is in like the money, going back to the money, this is the money that like running backs dreamed of getting. Le'Veon Bell held out an entire season to try and get paid this much money. And he didn't even he got like way less than he was supposed to. Even Ezekiel Elliott and the Cowboys, who have money coming out of their ears, he didn't get this much money. Now, this is an extremely well-deserved like bit of money towards the guy who carried me the entire way through the playoffs of my fantasy league and attempted to the championship, which I finally won my first ever fantasy championship. Thank you, Christian McCaffrey, for doing that. But that's why I please him and I love him so much, because of what he's done. He is absolutely amazing. He had like by far one of the best years of a running back, in my opinion, that I've seen in a very, very long time. I'll start putting some stats. McCaffrey had 287 rushing attempts for basically 1,400 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns, 0 fumbles throughout that. Not only did he have that, he also set this is the first time in history that a running back has had 1,000 plus rushing yards and 1,000 plus receiving yards. He had more receiving yards. He was 23rd in receiving. That is above Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. Those are star wide receivers that are getting paid basically more than him. And he had a better receiving year than they did. I mean, at least from a receiving yards perspective. But just the amount of just seeing all these stats and just seeing how he performed, especially last year. I mean, I always had my eye on him, especially because of my fantasy wise. He was my number one guy carrying me throughout the entire playoffs, along with Lamar Jackson. But though between him, it was just an outstanding, and that's why there was only one man that really could have paid for Carolina, like you said, Matt, and it had to be Christian McCaffrey, because they have no really money, or they're not really paying anyone else big bucks, and that's why he really deserves it, because in order for Carolina to keep him here, they needed to prove that they wanted him to stay, and giving him this much money shows that they like him and they want him for a few more years.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan, thank you for sharing your fantasy football. That was much appreciated.
Yes.
But yeah, Christian McCaffrey deserves this money, okay? He is sensational, and I'm just really happy for him that he finally got this money. We know he's a Stanford graduate. I'm going to read you guys some numbers. He had 5,443 scrimmage yards through his first 3 seasons, and that is considered the 5th best ever. So that's insane. Bottom line is, instead of just being a running back, this is the part I think Ethan was alluding to, but I don't think he said it directly. What I like to call Christian McCaffrey, he's not just a running back. He's an all-purpose back, as I like to call him. And what he brings to the table is 1,000 rushing yards, 1,000 receiving yards for 100 receptions. And you just look at what he just brings to the table even more. All-purpose yards, he has 2,392 yards from scrimmage, 19 touchdowns, and 403 touches. This guy is absolutely spectacular, if I ever had to say something. He's been the face of the Carolina Panthers franchise for the first season, or the last season and a half. And like I said, he is not just a running back. He's an all-purpose back. And by the way, it's not just he earns the money because he's sensational, like football perspective. but he's only 23. He's not 26. He's not 28, and he's not approaching 30, which now is apparently the death now for running backs. And he can ball, okay? He has great character, and when you take all these factors into consideration, he is all-purpose, not one-dimensional. He's the face of the franchise. Now that Cam Newton is gone, he puts in the work as a football player should, and he's trustworthy. At the end of the day, he got what he deserves.
Yeah, and in my opinion, out of anything, this man got snubbed from MVP. I mean, yes, Lamar Jackson had a great year, but if you look from a logical perspective, from a running back standpoint, this was unbelievable. If there was a running back MVP of the year, this guy should have won it by a landslide. Yes, Derrick Henry had a great year, but if you look from a stat perspective, this guy was unbelievable. I mean, I left a few more stats I want to include in here. Is that he was reception-wise, he was second in the entire league in receptions. And that includes wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. He was only behind the Michael Thomas, who had an unbelievable year for wide receiver too. But having a man with that many receptions, that showed they ran the offense to him. That shows that he's reliable. He could catch the ball. He has an all-purpose running back, like you said. But not only is he an all-purpose running back, he could also run. Has a bunch of rushing yards. I know I said he had 1,400 rushing yards. But if you take that and look at compared to all the other running backs in the entire league, he's third overall in rushing too. He's basically second overall in receiving in the entire league and third overall in the rushing. That is unbelievable for a running back to have such a feat just like that. I mean, he was only behind King Henry and Nick Chubb, who also had great years for themselves. But having a player like that with that much caliber to be able to do that much, like I said, I believe he deserved MVP not only for all the stuff he's done, but for carrying my fantasy football team. But this is well-deserved money overall, and that he really deserves it, and that's all I got to say.
Yeah, I think that the one thing we always forget about Christian McCaffrey is that there really wasn't anybody else on that Panthers offense who made a giant impact last season. Yes, DJ Moore was a very good wide receiver, and they had at least a foundation. But Christian McCaffrey absolutely carried this offense last season. When you have a quarterback such as Kyle Allen and Will Grier running your offense, it comes down to your running back in McCaffrey to carry the team, and he did. And they did the best that they could given the situation that they were in. McCaffrey deserved every cent of the new deal he had.
Yeah, there's nothing to disagree about that at all. He definitely led that offense last year. He led it the year before. I'm just hoping Carolina brings in some weapons, maybe via draft or maybe free agency that maybe we have not expected. But I'm hoping Teddy Bridgewater getting a fresh start in Carolina and Christian McCaffrey being the running back and all-purpose back, hopefully. They'll definitely be able to succeed expectations from last season. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching All About Sports, and we hope to see you later on.